Hey everyone, how are you all tonight? It's so good to see you. Hi Maria. Hey Danny. Hey Tech Death. Glad you could make it. Hi Annie. I hope you're feeling well. Hey Sleuth. It's good to see you. Hey John. Hi Dee. It's good to have all of you guys here. I hope everybody had a good weekend. You got some exciting stuff happening this week on Behind the Crime Doors. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Hey, Pookie, how are you? It's so good to see you. I'll let people kind of get into, come into the chat before we really get started. Hey, Mayor Party of Six, good to see you. Hey, AJ, I'm happy you made it. So I'm sure that everybody's probably wondering what we're going to talk about tonight. I worked on my live all day, so I apologize that it was kind of last minute getting my thumbnail up and everything, but I hope you'll bear with me. I thought we would talk just a little bit about Perry Freeman's live with me on Saturday regarding Delphi. And then I don't want to get too much into it because on Thursday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, I do have a live with Skip Jansen and Fig Solves. So they're coming on and we're going to talk about more in depth about the whole Perry Freeman interview and what that might mean for our case with Delphi. So that's kind of where things are right now with that. I am going to present a new case tonight. It's the Malibu Creek State Park murder. I don't know if you all are familiar with the case or not. It's a very, very sad case. Tristan Thomas Beaudette was murdered while he was camping with his two young daughters. And the case has become very important to me because one of our very own here in our community, this is his cousin. And it is Fig Solve's cousin. And Fig has given me permission to cover this case and to go over his cousin's situation and everything that happened. And I really feel honored that he's letting me do this. And I want to do it justice. I just can't say enough about the case. I think you guys will be interested to hear the story if you're not familiar with it. So let's talk just a little bit about what was going on Saturday with Perry. So just one second. Sorry, I just had to answer something. I'm sorry. So I was talking today with a couple of different people regarding everything that Perry talked to us about. And first of all, I just want to say, wasn't that a fantastic interview with him? I mean, he was simply amazing, and what a great guy, and so full of information. Literally, I could sit and talk to him for hours just to hear his stories, his take on cases. He's truly an expert. One of the things that I think is really amazing is when you talk to somebody like that and you get all this information from them, and then you go look at social media and what people are talking about that maybe watched it or watched it later. And it's like, even hearing from an expert, they just don't believe it. It's so interesting to me how that works. So I just, I mean, obviously we have to take everything with a grain of salt or whatever, but Perry's got years and years and years and years of experience in this stuff. And, he's been on every kind of angle in law enforcement. I just have to believe what he has to say. And I think he has a lot to say and he can't say it. So, um, Jane from the country, thank you so much. I have the best mods ever, and they really really do well at keeping um that chat the way we like it. So I'm glad you did. I'm glad that you learned a lot from that interview. I learned a lot from that interview. Um and he, like I said, he's just so down to earth for a law enforcement officer. I don't know if it's because he spent so many years doing undercover work. But yeah, he's just really easy to question, talk to, and just a super, super nice guy. So, I was talking about some of the things that came to mind today. I kind of jotted those down because you guys know how I am about notes and note taking. And so I kind of wrote some stuff down that I thought, these are some of the things that I thought about that he brought up. And we're going to definitely jump into these at length on Thursday with Skip and with Fig, but to discuss them more. But I was very surprised, actually, when Perry brought up that the photo of Bridge Guy on the bridge could be a female. Um, I know over the years I've heard it. We've all heard it. We probably know what female. Please don't put her name in my chat, but we probably all know what female he was referring to, possibly. But you know, it's not impossible that that's true. Um, but there's no way to know. We just assume that's a guy. So it's interesting that he brought that up and he threw that out there. I was impressed that he feels there will be an arrest made this year. And I really, really, really loved hearing that from him. It really made me feel better about the case that he thinks that too. I feel that way. And obviously, I think there's days when I'm like, oh, am I being too optimistic or whatever? But yeah, no, hearing that from him made me really feel confident. He also thinks that there's going to be more than one arrest. Again, I've felt that way too, that there is more than one person involved in this. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that more than one person actually committed the murders. But I think there's going to be people that are involved, whether it be obstructing justice, accessory after the fact, whatever. I think there's going to be more people involved. He also feels that meth is the center of it all. Now, we all know that there's a huge meth problem in Carroll County, in the surrounding counties, Kokomo, Logansport, I would even say Peru, Lafayette. So I just think that we need to keep an open mind about that. I've had conversations over the years with people where we've talked about cartels. I don't know about the cartel part of it, but I definitely think that it could be a regional meth ring um, that's surrounding all of this in some way. Um, and yes, Mayor Party of Six, I firmly believe that this, and he does too. Perry said there's no way this was a random um, act, not with the location, not with everything. It's just not. It's not random. It's never been random. He also feels that there's one YouTuber who's on the right track. I know all the people, I think I had like 150 people in my chat on Saturday night, and I got a ton of emails, you guys. Everybody wanted me to tell them who the YouTuber is. Well, he didn't tell me. Honest, he did not tell me that information. So I don't know who he's talking about. But I do know that he said, um, hold on one second. I just need to answer something. Sorry. He, I think when I think about that he said one YouTuber is on the right track. When he told us that he has watched YouTubers, he's watched stuff that's happened on YouTube, and he has actually tipped things in to the tip line that he felt was important that YouTubers have dug up. So one of the things that I really enjoyed about my interview with him was him talking about that. We always hear the negativity around true crime genre, how we all are presenting the cases. And there is good work happening out there. There is people that are, diligently looking at things, digging things up, and they're keeping their integrity in doing so. And, he doesn't want to do anything to jeopardize this case. I don't think any of us do, but we really need to be careful. And so, even though we all want to be in the know, sometimes we just can't be. So, um, he's told us he has to be careful about what he tells us and what he knows. And he was more than happy to come back. He's going to come back on my channel the day that they make the arrest. He told me we will be back together and we can talk about it all, because at that point we can let it all out, everything. And so that will be, I'm looking forward to that day, and I'm looking forward to having him back. He is just, like I said, I can't just say enough about him. I think I become his biggest fan. He's just great. But we all will know one day what's going on with Delphi. He also felt that evidence has been falsified in this case since day one, and I believe that. I absolutely believe that. Skip has said that, and I believe it. I believe that evidence has been falsified. Now, what does that mean? Could mean a number of different things. I really don't want to go down that speculative path because I don't want to point fingers, but I guarantee you that somebody didn't want this case solved. So, hi Sandra. We did we? Well, I'm glad I blew your mind. I hope that was in a good way. I can tell you that my mind was a little blown. Tech Death, you're right. His taste in music is impeccable. Absolutely wonderful. He's drumming up business for you, Tech Death, like crazy. He's going to keep you busy making music for all of us. So, um, he feels that the book that Libby was reading, the one that Becky brought to James Renner's attention in that interview, is important somehow. I'm currently reading it. It's called Promise Not to Tell. I'm almost finished with it. I will tell everyone, get the book and read it. If you want to see something bizarre about this case, get that book and read it. I still cannot believe that she was reading this book. Um, it's just mind-blowing, but I'm serious. It's worth the read. It's not a long read. It's just taken me a while because I've been so busy with other stuff, but I'm trying to finish it. He also told us that people are scared to come forward, and they're literally scared to death to talk about what they know. And I can totally see that. And he told me he doesn't understand why law enforcement doesn't truly sit down and explain to the public about witness protection and how it works. Um, a long time, Mir. A long time. So, you know, I know it seems kind of crazy, it's the Midwest, it's rural Indiana, and it's like who would need to have witness protection from that location in this kind of a case. But I'm here to tell you that two little girls were murdered horrifically, and there is something going on. This case is much bigger than any of us had any idea of in the beginning. And I believe that now more than anything. And I think that that's why it's been 5 years. I think that's why we're looking at a case that everybody says, well, law enforcement just doesn't know anything. That's not true. And, the only reason we think that is because we don't know what they know. Oh, so digital, I can tell you that Becky said that she was reading it. It was not for school. She was reading it on her own for pleasure. Um, so that's what I can tell you about that. Um, he also told us that the murders that happened before the girls and after the girls could be significant. He was talking about, of course, the law enforcement officer that committed suicide while on duty in Delphi. I still say that's a huge red flag. Somebody said, and this is a rumor, and I do not have any way to, to tell you if this is true or not, but that law enforcement officer was somebody's alibi. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. All I can tell you is that anytime a police officer commits suicide while on duty, that should be a red flag. There's a reason that that happens. So I know some people have alluded to that it wasn't suicide, but I'm not going that far either. I'm just saying there's something wrong with that. He also was talking about Flora, which it just breaks my heart to talk about the Flora fire and the four little girls that lost their lives in that fire that nobody talks about. There's a few people on YouTube that have done coverage of the case. Incognito did an absolutely beautiful coverage of the Flora fire. If you guys aren't familiar, you need to go out and read about what happened in Flora in November of 2016, 3 months before the girls were killed. They were in a house fire with their mother, who was a single mom, and they did not survive. And the all I can say is the corruption that was around that case between the fire inspector and his wife, who was embezzling tons of money from the county. And eh, I mean, the fire chief, um, all of it. We you just really, really um, need to talk. You need to you need to really look at that stuff and go over it. Hey, Real Gone Gonzo, how are you? So good to see you. We've got to get together. I went looking for your email, Gonzo. I couldn't find it. So if you'll give your email to Tech Death, he can give it to me and I can email you to come on the show because I'd really like to have you. And I just think that there's a lot of things that we don't know. And once we do, a lot of this is going to make sense. And just like, just like Doug Carter told us, and he's told us this for a while, that one day, everything that we've done and all the things that you didn't think make sense will make sense. Sandra says, think ruins of house still standing right downtown near the courthouse. And SD says, people had to resign. The FBI were alerted to look into both Carroll County and ISP corruption in the Flora fire. Sad there's only a $5,000 reward for information to help solve the case. It's horrific to me. These little girls, and I'm gonna put it out there because to me, this is part of what's happening here. These little girls were African American. If they had been white, there would be a hellish outcry going on about what happened to those little girls. And I'm sorry, but that's how I feel. You're in a rural area where it's the good old boy kind of mentality. And to me, that's why that case has never been solved. I just race plays a part of it to me. It's also, I think, one of the reasons it's not covered the way it should be. I mean, we can go back and we could talk for hours about how African American women go missing every single day and are murdered and just thrown away, and nobody talks about them on the news. I mean, they may get a little blurb if they're lucky. And when we see a Gabby Petito, everybody loses their shit, pardon my French, and goes crazy. And it's just like, this is the kind of stuff we have to work hard to change. We have to work hard as a society to change this. And I don't want to get on my soapbox on race and all of that because it takes us off topic, but you guys know what I mean. And anybody that's looked at the two cases between Abby and Libby and the Flora fire, you can see the complete and utter unequalness in how the case is covered. Look at what the reward is for Abby and Libby, and we have a $5,000 reward for 4 little girls. Are you kidding me? Where's the Indianapolis Colts stepping up and handing money to that family? Why isn't somebody asking them that question? Because I would yes, I will be covering the Flora fire. I absolutely will. It's on my list because it's just horrific. And one of the things that bothers me is on Reddit. We went through this last fall on Reddit, but one of my friends on Reddit, he was like, look, there's nobody covering Flora. So he went out and created a Reddit sub for Flora. And I'm telling you, he tried hard to get it off the ground. And you guys need to go look it up. And you look at how many subscribers are on the Flora Fire compared to how many are in Delphi murder. So we'll get off that now. I don't want you all to get mad at me. But I mean, it's just, it does rile me up. It gets my blood boiling because those little girls' lives matter too. And they didn't deserve what happened to them. And the fact that that was arson and it's still unsolved and it'll be 6 years in November, something's wrong. You know, Jamie, if you have the ability to do content on that for the Flora girls, I'm putting it out there to all of my friends on YouTube, anybody who has the ability to talk about Flora needs to, because the case has basically been forgotten. And yes, Anthony Greeno did do an excellent video on the Flora Fire. He did. I know there's been a couple of other people that have covered it, and I can't off the top of my head think of them. I know Incogs was really good. But there's something going on here, and it's just time that we get it figured out. And Perry brought it up. So I thought, you know, hey, we should talk about it. The escort, Jalen Rain, he said she was telling the truth. He believes it without a doubt, about the sex clubs and how they're getting girls. Hey, Daz. Hi, Daz. How are you? Good to see you. Hey, Alexa. Yeah, it's sad. The Flora case is sad because it doesn't get covered. So yeah, I thought that everything that Jalen said was very easily believable. She didn't come across to me as not telling the truth at all. And as far as I'm concerned, she put her life in danger coming out and talking about everything that she did. So, yeah, I mean, hey, bloke, how are you, Callum? How are you doing? It's so good to see you in my chat. It's late over there for you. You know it? I'm sitting here looking at my clock. You're supposed to be asleep. What are you doing? I like to give him crap. He knows that. So that's a thing. You know, we've got the Lafayette Boys Club. You know, I want somebody to dig into that. I really do. I think that we need to find out more about what's going on there. That just doesn't sound right to me. He believes this case really needed a special prosecutor, so it doesn't surprise him that one was appointed in January. So all the people that are saying, oh, this special prosecutor had nothing to do with Delphi, has to do with some other case, whatever. No, I don't believe that. And neither does Perry. And if it is true, then again, we're talking what's going on in Delphi, because there needs to be a special prosecutor on this case. Hey, RJ, good to see you. What are we congratulating bloke on? I missed it. What are we congratulating him on? You're a rule breaker. What did you break? What did you do? What did you do? He reminds you of Jaquan Phoenix. You did everything? I suppose you probably did. I do know you. Perry also said he believes someone prominent is involved. How many out there in my chat believes that? If you believe somebody prominent is involved in the Delphi murders, put a number 1 in the chat, please. I just like to see who thinks that. Because I felt that way all along, that and I've gone back and forth of who that prominent person might be. And look at those number 1s come flying out. Boy, I love to see that. Hey, Grizz, you snuck in here. I didn't even see you. How are you doing tonight? Way to go, AJ. Just face it, bloke. You are just one cute guy. What can we say? Like Lipsha, she can't hit one fast enough. But anyway, yeah, he said, there's a couple of people who that could be. He also, as I said, has emailed tips from things that he's seen on YouTube. So meaning that he thinks that YouTubers are onto something. So I think that's good. And yes, Grizz, I think I'm doing good. I'm glad you are. True client, our bloke, the question was, if you believe that somebody who is very prominent in Delphi is involved in the murders. You were screenshotting that comment. Why doesn't that surprise me? But those are the things that I wrote down about Perry's interview that stuck out to me. And so, yeah, I think that's what's going on there. So we'll delve into it more on Thursday with Skip and with Fig, and see where they're feeling or what they're feeling about it and what he had to say. So I think that'll be interesting. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move on and we're going to talk about the, where did my screen go? Darn it. Hold on one second. I'm just looking for something. There it is. We're going to move on to the new case. So the Malibu Creek State murder. I want to get this to where I can present it. So just give me a minute to pull it up. And I'm going to share my screen with you guys. So the Malibu Creek State Park is an 8,000-acre wilderness in the Santa Monica Mountains stretching along the western side of Malibu Canyon between the coastal city of Malibu and the San Fernando Valley in California. And Tristan Beaudette was murdered there in 2018, in the summer of 2018. It was June 22nd, 2018, and he had taken his 2 young daughters with him, along with his brother-in-law and his brother-in-law's 2 sons, to go camping. He always wanted to take his daughters camping there. He loved this place. He liked to go hiking there. It was a great place to go biking. He was just an avid outdoorsman, and he was just in love with nature. He just loved to be outside. And he also was really into teaching his daughters all about nature and the constellations and testing his theory he had that all kids really need to have fun are sticks and rocks. Now, as I said, Tristan is the cousin of our very own Fig Solves. And when Fig and I started talking and I started to get to know him, of course, he talked to me about this and that this was something that happened in his life and that he had an understanding of the way families feel about cases and how they're handled. And we started talking about that. And I shared with him my experience um, with my son and what I had gone through losing my 4-year-old son to cancer. And we talked about that. And just one thing led to another. And we just kept talking about Tristan and how he and Fig were looking forward to spending time together with their children. And there was just a lot of things that were happening in his life, in Tristan's life, and they were all good things. And how it was all just tragically and absolutely cut completely short. And I said to him after I heard the whole story, I said, "You know what?" I said, "I don't know how you feel about this, but I would like to cover his case and talk about it." And he said that he was um, honored that I would do that for him. And he said that he never talked about it and he kept it quiet while he was here on YouTube because he didn't want any of us to feel he was using this case to any kind of an advantage. And I just want you all to know because it's gonna tear me up. I'm gonna get teary talking about this. I just want you to know because it is so heartbreaking. I don't want anybody to leave here that has anything negative, please, to say to Fig about this because this was not his idea. This was all my idea about covering it. And it's extremely emotional for him. And he's very happy that I am because he likes that people talk about Tristan. And I totally understand where he's coming from because my biggest fear when I lost my son was that people would forget him and that someday nobody would talk about him. And so I get where Fig's coming from. Just talking about Tristan makes him feel better. Not so much about what happened to him, but his life. So he was really into, like I said, the outdoors, wanting to go camping and things. So he decided on this campground, and it was a meadow that's tucked into a wooded area and surrounded by the jagged peaks of the Santa Monica Mountains. And you can see those here, all these peaks and stuff. And the park goes all the way back up in here. And I mean, it's, you can hike way back up in here and there's tons of mountain lions from what I understand. And but it's beautiful. It's an idyllic spot packed with families, especially in the summer months. Oops, didn't want to do that. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can get back to where I need to be. Sorry, guys. Just give me one moment. Just love when you're going along and it stops working. So on Thursday in late June of 2018, it was a summer solstice, so it was the longest day of the year. Tristan decided to make the trip from Orange County, where he lived. His brother-in-law, Scott McCurdy, joined them with his 2 boys, who were 3 and 5. It was a dad's and kids trip to say goodbye. and Tristan's little girls were 4 and 2. This is a picture of Tristan and his wife, Erica, and their 2 little girls. In a week, Tristan and his wife, Erica Wu, were planning to move their family to the San Francisco Bay Area. Tristan was a polymer chemist. This guy, I can't tell you, I mean, I've been listening to so much on him for the last 3 days, and he was so intelligent. This man was working on cancer research, you guys. I mean, he was, and also on vaccine research. It's just incredible the stuff that he was doing. He had already had his last day at Allergan, the pharmaceutical company where he worked. Erica was an OBGYN and she was completing her fellowship. She had a medical board certification exam that Friday, and Tristan's trip would get the kids out of the house so that she could study. What a great dad, right? What a great dad. You know, your wife's got this huge test coming up, and you're like, it's okay, honey. Let me take the kids camping. A 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. It's just crazy. So she and Tristan started dating during their senior year of high school in Fresno. And after being set up for his winter formal, she was reserved, the 4th of 5 girls born to immigrants from China. Erica said that she was attracted to Tristan's confidence and ease. He was a happy guy, and he was very sort of just uncomplicated, she said. He wore everything on his sleeve. And I mean, I think his smile just speaks for itself. And when I saw the photos of Tristan, I was like, Lord, I see where how he looks like him. Don't you guys see that? I can so see how they're related. At 35, Tristan was an accomplished chemist. He had published widely and held a patent related to vaccine delivery. But Erica says, compared with her, he never looked as if he was working hard. He devoted a lot of time to adventures, camping, hiking, mountain biking, backpacking. Camping trips for him were not just the camping trip. He just loved the whole process, like getting all the stuff together and planning out the meals. Erica was less enthusiastic, but he met her where she was. When we did go, he would bring a blow-up bed, she said. He would try to minimize the roughing it as much as possible for me. Just an incredible guy. The morning of the trip, Erica watched him pack the car. It was a black Subaru Forester, a camp stove, a tent, a small bicycle with training wheels on the roof rack next to his large one. It was the first time he'd taken the girls camping without her, and she had secretly been hoping he would cancel. Whenever he would go on long business trips or the girls would leave, there was always part of me that was just a little bit anxious, she said. But she was also grateful that he was the kind of father who would take their daughters camping when she needed to work. She put the girls' hair in pigtails. The one thing Tristan couldn't do was anything with their hair. I remember braiding both of the girls' hair, and I'm like, okay, just leave it like this till you guys get back. At Malibu Creek State Park, Tristan and Scott checked in with park employees who assigned them a campsite. They followed a one-way road around the meadow to the site, but Tristan, a camping perfectionist, didn't like it. The ground was uneven and it was too close to the bathrooms. Scott went back to negotiate for another spot, and they settled in at the northern end of the meadow. During the long dusk, the kids ran around looking for bugs while the dads made a fire and cooked dinner. Tristan had brought Manhattans pre-mixed, which they sipped. By the fire that night, they discussed Tristan's move. He was so excited about this next chapter in his life. Scott said, I kind of guilted him a little bit, like, well, we had a good run, buddy. I'll miss you, you know. I remember at the end of the night, we decided, okay, well, It's late. Let's go to bed. We put out the campfire and I gave him a big hug and told him I loved him. And this is the actual photo, you guys, of the campsite. Just before sunrise, Scott was awakened by a sound that he thought was fireworks. Then he heard one of the girls crying. She wouldn't settle, which was strange. Why wasn't Tristan helping her? He went over to Tristan's tent and opened the flap. The girls were whimpering, and one of them was saying, "Wet, wet." He could hear the 4-year-old shushing her sister, trying to comfort her. But he couldn't see anything. He reached for Tristan and tried unsuccessfully to rouse him. And this was normal. He was a very heavy sleeper. Groping around in the dark, he found Tristan's phone and used it as a flashlight. Scott rolled him over and by the light of the phone saw that he was covered in blood. The girls kneeling beside him were in a pool of it. Tristan had been shot through the head. The autopsy report, which was released nearly a year later, showed that a copper-jacketed lead bullet had entered just below his hairline and penetrated his brain. It was a homicide, but an utterly baffling one. The weapon's make and model were unknown. There were no eyewitnesses, no suspects, and no motive. Rumors flew around Malibu. Had his vaccine work made him a target of Big Pharma or the government? Was the perpetrator a disgruntled former park worker? Someone associated with an illegal marijuana grow? None of it made any sense. It felt both terrifyingly random and shockingly precise. Tristan had been killed while he slept beside his children, and no one knew why. I can't even imagine. I'm sorry, you guys. Locals sometimes call Malibu the pink bubble. The nickname suggests privilege and safety, a self-enclosed universe where everything is tinted the color of the sky at magic hour. One recent headline-grabbing crime in Malibu was the brazen theft of 2 amethyst purifying crystals worth $125,000 from outside a shop called Serenity Rocks. Malibu's population is wealthy and overwhelmingly white, with a history of privacy enforcement that surpasses the familiar walling off of natural beauty for the enjoyment of a few. These days, Malibu is a tourist town with more than 13 million visitors a year and only 13,000 residents. People like Lady Gaga, Leonardo DiCaprio, Barbra Streisand, Jack Nicholson are some who, along with the beaches and the hiking trails, are part of the appeal, though the day trippers will likely never glimpse them. Kahil Rafati, a co-founder of Sun Life Organics, Malibu's swankiest smoothie bar, said the first thing tourists say, I've had this question asked to me, no joke, 100 times, is, where is Malibu? I'm like, this is it. Like, yes, Lady Gaga lives here, but she doesn't want you to know that, and you're never going to see her house. The Malibu that we get to experience is not available for the public. Malibu is a walled garden. Bad things are not supposed to happen here. The morning after Tristan went camping, Erica woke up at home and got ready to take her test. She was surprised when her older sister showed up at her door and disbelieving when she heard why. Her sister put her in the car and drove to Malibu, while Erica called family members. When Erica arrived at the park, she tried to get to the campground. She said, one of the rangers or somebody there said something like, this never happens, this kind of stuff never happens here. It was a callous thing to say to a person whose husband had just been murdered. It was also untrue. Over the previous 20 months, Multiple victims had reported to authorities that they had been shot at in Malibu Creek State Park or on the nearby Canyon Road. There had been 6 near misses, 2 of them in the campground where Tristan was killed. 1 person was injured, requiring surgery. State park officers had taken reports, as had deputies from Malibu Lost Hills Sheriff's Station, the local branch of the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, but neither the sheriff nor the California Department of Parks and Recreation issued a public safety warning between the 3rd and the 4th shooting. State parks posted an enticing picture online of someone free climbing a rock wall at the park with the hashtag Invent Your Adventure. The campground remained open to visitors. Not long after Tristan's killing, when the campground was finally shut down, this reporter went out to the park and walked around. There was just a small paper sign informing people of the closure. He looked at all the kiosks he came across. Nothing was posted about Tristan or any of the near misses. No request for information, no suggestion to remain vigilant. And on his way out, he stopped by the administrative office. When I introduced myself, Tony Hoffman, the public safety superintendent, asked me to step outside. He was visibly uncomfortable. He said he wasn't free to talk. Then he added tantalizingly that Tristan's death began to lift the veil of ignorance. A few weeks later, I met Jimmy Rogers in a parking lot at Tapaya Park, a day-use area of Malibu Creek State Park. He is 31 years old with long dark hair and a swimmer's build. He looked at the sky where 2 specks were bobbing and weaving, a raven bombing a red-tailed hawk, he said. We walked into a grove of decaying oaks in the fall of 2016. Rogers told me he was a graduate student in environmental biology working at REI on the side, and he had decided to take a 3-day solo trek on the Backbone Trail, a 67-mile route along the spine of the Santa Monica Mountains. He had been hiking parts of the trail for a decade, but he wanted to complete it in one go. And not many people attempt this, as the trail has few official campsites and plenty of mountain lions. Not long, oh, darn it, I don't know how that happened. State park officers had taken reports, as had deputies. I think I went backwards. Sorry, guys. There we go. On his first day, Rogers hiked 25 miles, reaching Malibu Creek State Park around 9 p.m. Staying in the campground seemed extravagant to him. It cost about $50 and required a reservation. So Rogers was planning to eat a peanut butter sandwich and an energy bar for dinner, sleep for several hours, and get up early to resume hiking. He decided to hang a hammock close to the trailhead in the grove in Tapaya Park. I just want to stop for a second. Does anybody think that you could walk or hike 25 miles and only eat a peanut butter sandwich and an energy bar? I read that and I was like, wow, that's something else. Anyway, Rogers bundled into a down jacket and a sleeping bag and cocooned himself in the hammock. But it was hard to sleep. He could hear the traffic rushing by on the canyon road, and after midnight, he finally dozed off, listening to Cat Power on the headphones. A few hours later, he was startled awake. He can't remember the sound, just that there was one and a sudden drop when his hammock split and he fell to the ground. His right arm was stinging, and when he looked at it, he saw that the underside near the triceps had 30 or 40 small holes in it. His first thought was that he had been attacked by a rabid animal. He cycled through the list of candidates: coyote, fox, dog, skunk, rat. There was a thin layer of blood covering his wound that indicated a vampire bat, pushed north from its usual habitat in Mexico by climate change. He held still, listening. He knew how to be silent in the wilderness while working for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service on a study of California condors. He had spent 13-hour days observing the nests. I didn't hear anything and I didn't see anything, he said. So I thought, what are the chances somebody's just hiding in the dark? Rogers proceeded without a flashlight deeper into the grove. After several yards, he heard something. I wanted to keep going because if it's a mouse, it's going to make more sounds to get away. But I didn't because I literally thought I don't want to get shot in the face. He retreated, shouting insults into the silent woods just in case. Then left the park, walking along the dark canyon road until he finally had cell phone service. He called his girlfriend and she hurried him to the hospital, where he was treated for rabies. A few weeks later, he told me he had noticed that there was a sphere that was rising to the surface of his wound. I was playing around with my nephew at the time and it just popped out, he said, and it was metal. You drop it on a glass and it goes tink, tink, tink. Roger's girlfriend squeezed out a few more metal balls before he decided to get an x-ray. The balls, it turned out, were birdshot and he needed surgery to remove them. At that point, he knew for sure what kind of animal had attacked him, and he was furious. He kept thinking about the way he had been sleeping inside his sleeping bag with his right arm thrown over his forehead. Whoever shot him seemed to have been aiming for his head. Rogers drove over to Malibu Creek State Park and filed a report with a ranger. He told me some interesting things, Rogers said. He said that none of the state park's employees go out there on patrol because they are afraid. He said there's a lot of weird stuff going on in this area. The ranger, Rogers says, urged him to call Lost Hills Station, and he talked to a couple of deputies, but nothing much came of it. At the northern end of Malibu Creek State Park, behind the Lost Hills Station, is a scruffy patch of wilderness where the brush, crisscrossed with deer trails, can grow to overhead. There, on a steep slope facing the canyon road, is where Anthony Rauda lived, in a tarp-covered dugout under the canopy of a large oak tree. Rauda, who is 44, with dark hair and green eyes, spent years in and around the Santa Monica Mountains. He preferred nature and solitude to people, and he didn't get much news. But he did tell this reporter, I heard a lot of gunshots around the time of the Beaudette killing. He thought he'd been shot at, but wasn't sure if it was intentional. I just heard the bullets fly by. Rauda's life was lonely by design in the hills. He froze at night and hiked during the day. He was close to the park's entrance. It was just across Mulholland Highway, where lots of people leave their cars to avoid paying the parking fee. If I'd ever seen the Dukes of Hazzard, I'd recognize the terrain, he told me. Every morning, he took pictures of the fog coming off Mulholland. He saw foxes, bobcats, eagles, baby lizards crawled on him as he sat in the sun. After I mentioned that I had once written about the mountain lions in the Santa Monicas, he showed me a drawing he had made of 2 mountain lion cubs snuggling. I recognized it as a painstaking copy of a famous photograph published by National Geographic. Avoiding people was a habit and also a way of escaping scrutiny. Rauda told me I worried every time I left the wilderness, as the sheriffs would usually try to stop me, question me about being around such exclusive neighborhoods. After the Tristan killing, he heard their sirens wailing through the canyons, and he sensed that he was being followed whenever he hiked. Wright told me that he first heard of the Malibu shooter in January of 2017 from Lieutenant James Royal, who oversaw the Lost Hill detectives. Tony Hoffman, the state park superintendent, had reached out. He was worried about a series of unexplained shootings in the park. Several days after Jimmy Rogers was shot in November of 2016, a man named Ron Carson was in a camper parked close to where Tristan Beaudette was later killed. Between 3 and 4 in the morning, he got up to use the bathroom, turning on the light, and then he got back in bed and turned it off. He was lying in the dark when the camper was rocked by an explosion. It felt like a bomb went off, he testified later. He looked around, there was bird shot everywhere, and the wadding from a shotgun shell was lodged in the wall right next to where his head had been. This is the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department's bulletin for Tristan. And it just talks about the case. I'm going to go back and put it back up. Okay. So, Malibu is known as the celebrity center of California. Hidden Hills is around there, Calabasas. In fact, the entrance to the park is in Calabasas. And those are all nearby with multi-million-dollar homes. It has the sound of the crashing waves of the Pacific Ocean. And people have said it has some of the most beautiful vistas in California. The hills are lined with mansions of billionaires, and this surf town of long ago holds some horrifying stories. And this is one such story. Tristan's story and his senseless murder while on this camping trip with his 2 young daughters is beyond comprehension. I still find it difficult to understand how somebody could just be randomly shooting at people just because. The location is a pristine area with oak savannas, volcanic rock formations, and a 14-mile creek that feeds the Pacific Ocean at the Malibu Lagoon. It opened as a state park in 1976. The land contained a movie ranch owned by 20th Century Fox, and relics of that history still litter the park. The MASH camp, where the TV show was filmed for years, is a popular hiking destination. And Tristan loved this place, and he wanted to take his daughters there before he moved to San Francisco. Had law enforcement put out warnings about the shootings that had been going on in this location the months before, Tristan might have made a different choice and decided not to take his daughters and put them in harm's way. And I can't imagine being the family and thinking about that. One of the things that I was thinking about when I was learning about Tristan and the case is that he was such a kind person. And he was fun-loving. He was just happy. He was just a happy person. And he always thought about others. And I'm just like, the stuff that he was working on, the fact that he was working on polymers that actually, what a polymer does is it attaches to the cancer cell and only kills it without killing the good cells. And one of the most important things about cancer, and I know this because of going through it with my own son, is that the treatment for cancer is more horrific at times than the actual disease. So what he was working on and the things he was perfecting actually could have been huge in reducing and even curing cancer. And that's where a lot of people came in and thought, was this some sort of a hit by Big Pharma? Because he was getting so close to some really big breakthroughs. This case is not as open and shut as it appears. And yes, there is a person in custody, the person that I showed you back here. Where is he? Right here. This is the person that's in custody. Anthony Rauda, who is not your most sane person, I would have to say. And we'll get into that as I go on with this case, because I'm definitely not going to be able to touch on everything tonight because it's so in depth. But just to put this out there, Erica brought a lawsuit against the county of Los Angeles, the state, for lack of notifying residents and park goers that they had an active shooter in this area for years. And nobody should have been exposed to that. They didn't close the park right away after Tristan was killed. They continued to let people go in there and camp and hike and all of that. And there are so many reports, and we'll go through some of those as well. But yeah, I mean, to me, it's just senseless. We don't know for sure, but all I can say is, had I known that there was active shooter in an area that I was thinking of going camping with my small children, I doubt very seriously that I would, that I would do that I would go there. So it's going to be really interesting as we go on further with the case. I'm going to do the second part of the case, and I will have Fig come on after that, and then we will talk about the case together, and how this has affected him and his family. Because trust me, it has. Especially his little girls. And I can't even imagine. But I thought one of the reasons I wanted to cover Tristan's case was because having someone in our own community that's suffered such a tragic loss, it really brings to light why we need to be careful about how we talk about cases, the things that we talk about, and how they might hurt the victims' families, and that we re-victimize them by how we cover them. Just like the police officer who looked at Erica that morning and said, this kind of thing doesn't happen here. We don't see this. This never happens here. What a callous thing to say to a mother and a wife whose husband was just murdered in front of her two daughters. I mean, it's just, beyond, like I said, beyond me. So those are some of the things that we'll look forward to with the case. But I wanted to at least present it and get it out there for you guys to research maybe a little bit on your own. And I would just be mindful of that when you talk to Fig. I wouldn't just rush and start asking him all these questions about the case. Because again, put yourself in that person's, position. But I'm sure that, if you do want to ask questions of him, he will answer them. Because again, he likes to talk about Tristan. So I want to get this picture off of here. Give me just a moment, you guys. guys, sorry about that. Sorry, guys. Just my asthma. It happens when I talk and I don't drink enough while I'm talking, and I'm really sorry. Things just start getting tight. I start coughing. I know better. But I'm okay. Yes, Maria, I'm okay. Sorry, guys. And now I'm all stuffed up from coughing. So, not to mention, I think I was crying a little bit there at the end too. So, how are you guys doing? What are you guys all thinking about Fig's cousin, Tristan? Were you shocked? Thank you, Lipsha. You're sweet. Thanks, Maria. Bloke, I can't believe you're still up. Yeah, it's heartbreaking, it's for sure. I just can't imagine what that family has had to deal with and go through. But like I said, after Fig shared it with me, I really, really wanted to honor Tristan by talking about him and talking about what happened to him. Yeah, True Crime Garage did cover it. They covered it in 2 episodes. There's a podcast out called The Lost Hills. That's tough. I listened to that. It took me a while. It really, really was hard to listen to. He did not say that to me. So I don't think so. Jetta, I don't think so. He has a really big heart. He really wants to make a difference in the Delphi case. Oh, AJ, thank you so, so much. I'm so glad you guys understand. I hate it. I mean, I'm sitting here coughing my head off, and I'm like, oh my goodness, my poor people are sitting here wondering if I'm dying or not. Thank you, Mel. It's so good to see you. How are you? No, Jill, it's not. Keeping stuff like that from the public is absolutely does no good. No good at all. I mean, in my opinion, when you start hiding stuff like that, all you're doing is putting more people in danger. I just don't understand that, why you would do that. I What's wrong, Tech? What's wrong? What are you confused about? Did I confuse you? He does make a difference, Zooter 15. He does. And he's really good at critical thinking. And I think that that's kind of what this case needs, is really good critical thinkers. So I'm glad he's covering it. I agree with you, Bloke. I do. I think people are afraid of backlash, but we have to get out of that fear, and we have to start standing up and talking about things that need to be talked about. This whole living in fear of what others might think of us or say about us has to stop, because it's a matter of right and wrong, in my opinion. We just need to, if you know it's wrong, you've got to say it's wrong. You can't be on the fence. Yes, Vanessa, they did. Trying to hide stuff with the Golden State Killer. And so, I mean, it's, you guys, I'll be right back. Just give me 1 second. I've got to go get some water. I'll be right back. Okay, guys, thank you. Yeah, Alexa, I'm good. Thank you. I just needed to get some ice water. I hate when those happen. They are so embarrassing. And it's like my last 3 streams, I think I've had asthma issues. The trees are all budded here. It's just not a good time for my asthma. So, but yeah, just keeping it real, you guys. Oh, you're totally fine. I'm glad that you ask. It's kind of you. So is there anything else that you guys wanted to talk about tonight? I had said before, you guys, if you... Hey, AJ, thank you so much. You have a good rest of your night, or day, I should say, down there in Australia. AJ's down under, guys. Look, we went over that in the very beginning of the stream. There's just a whole bunch of points that Perry made during my interview with him on Saturday. And we just talked about those. You'll have to just watch the first, I don't know, 25 minutes of the stream and replay, and you'll get it all. We're going to go over all that on Thursday with my live with Skip and Fig. And that one, you guys, just remember, that's at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'm doing it early because Fig requested me to, so that's why. Oh, Lynn, you're so, that's so good. I'm glad. I'm really glad. I hope you got a lot out of it. I usually don't re-listen to them. Sometimes I do because I miss the chat so much. Especially when I'm talking so much, I sometimes have trouble keeping up with you guys. And I hate that because I do like to talk about you, what you're saying in there, and, pull some of the stuff you guys are saying up on the screen and stuff so that we can talk about it. But sometimes it's difficult. But yeah, I thought it was a good show. AJ's awesome, isn't she? She's like the most wonderful person. I just love her. He does care. That man has seen a lot in his years in law enforcement. I mean, he was undercover in a biker gang, for God's sake. You know that he saw a lot. Callum, you know how we feel about you here. You know that, right? She is a super mod. She's a great mod. She really is. She keeps on top of everything. And Maria's right behind her. There's not much that Maria misses, let me tell you. Maria's keeping people in check. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Melodramatic Monday. Yeah, humidity can do it to me as well. It just makes me really tired. That's the main thing, is when I have one of those episodes, then I just get super tired. So I'll just sleep well tonight. Yes, Callie, you do. You know what, Tech Death? You're fine. It's just I know it gets late for you, and I try and I understand that, and you fall asleep. I will never forget the time that you fell asleep in Graz's uh live stream, and wasn't he kicking people or something, Maria? Wasn't it Tech Death that did that? Wasn't it him that fell asleep and had his his finger on a keyboard on something, I think on his phone, and it was funny. Callie, eat lots of spinach, my dear. It'll help bring your iron right up. Wasn't that funny, Maria? That was hilarious that night. It was so funny, and he was asleep. And it was just like one right after another. But we love you, Tech Death. We know you didn't do it on purpose. Like I said, it's late where you are. Could be, Nadia. Could be. There's a lot of people that think that. It was in Graz's live stream. Yeah, it was. Because at the end, when people started bringing it to Graz's attention, he was like, oh, Tech Death wouldn't do that. He lived on third shift for 20 years, and now he's on first. So his body's trying to adjust. You're all good. You're all good. You did fall asleep. Oh, that's hilarious, bloke. He says Shane was sweatier than a nonce in a nursery at the first presser. That's hilarious. Yeah, he seemed to be a little uncomfortable. It's really hard on the body to do that, that's for sure. There's a lot of shady dealings going on in Delphi, that's for sure. There's a lot of stuff that just doesn't pass the smell test. You call him Sweaty Betty? That's kind of funny. Well, guys, I've been on here for a while, so I probably should hop off and let you guys all, well, first, let Callie get to bed because it's late where he's at. And I'm sure the rest of you are tired of listening to me talk. I've talked enough tonight. But I always love talking with you guys. I love spending time with you. And listening to what you have to say about our topics. Yeah, Lynn, so he says. I just think it's interesting that somebody would resign as mayor to go work in the prosecutor's office. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I guess he just really didn't want the power anymore, maybe. No problem, Alexa. Thank you for being here. Callie, you sleep well, my dear. What? Oh, Lord. Oh, no, Tech. Lovely. Yeah, Digital, I am too. I hope you guys can come on Thursday. It should be a really good one. So I'm looking forward to. And they're so cute though, Tech Death. They're worth that. You know, it's what's a little pig pee? I mean, come on. Right? Oh, Sandra, thank you so much. I'm glad you found my channel as well. Oh no. He gets the girls out and those boys get excited. That's for the darn truth. That is for true. Well, guys, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your night, and the rest of your week. And I hope you'll catch me on Thursday at 5. If you haven't yet, would you please like and subscribe? And we will talk to you guys all on Thursday. So good to be with you tonight. Be safe, everyone. Good night.